Welcome back, my friends. Jake here. Today on the channel, we're going to do another question and answer video. Once a month on the community tab, my YouTube channel, I'll put out a question prompt such as this one. Down below, you can ask me anything about anything, read each other's questions, and thumbs up the ones you want me to respond to. The cutoff for this video was 50 thumbs up. Thank you to everyone who left a question or read each other's questions. So the top ranked question was from Ali Mac 18, 335 thumbs up. And the question is, should Russia stay on the UN Security Council if they're breaching 9 UN resolutions and other sanctions by helping North Korea with weapon technology? So I think you know the answer to this question, but no, of course not. I don't think Russia should be on the UN Security Council with a veto. For the 5 permanent members, these were the first 5 nuclear powers: China, the Soviet Union, France, the UK, and the United States. So it made sense, going back 60 years, for these 5 to be on the Security Council with veto power. But the Soviet Union doesn't exist anymore. Here's the cover of the New York Times. Gorbachev, the last Soviet leader, resigns. U.S. recognizes republic's independence. This is December 26, 1991. So the Soviet Union is gone. And I don't understand exactly why Russia was allowed to take that seat and hold a permanent veto. Russia is a terrorist state. It took them a couple decades to come back round to basically Stalinism from the 1950s, but Russia is actively trying to destroy the world, trying to tear down the international rules-based order that the UN was founded to protect. So having Russia on the UN Security Council defeats the purpose of the United Nations to begin with. And I do believe that after Russia loses this war, in order for sanctions to be lifted, there's going to be a long list of demands for the new governments replacing the Putin regime. And one of these, I think, is Russia has to give up their permanent seat on the UN Security Council, and somebody else should get it. And if I'm being completely objective, based on population, based on geography, a seat should really be given to India. They're a nuclear power. They have more people than any other country in the world now. And just with geographic representation, another country in India being on the UN Security Council, this is the direction I would go in. We'll see what the world does in a couple years. Next question is from Chopper. Hi Jake, we know the UN is largely ineffective, given Russia has a seat on the UN Security Council, but with obvious mistreatment of Ukrainian POWs, where is the Red Cross in holding Russia to account for not upholding their duties and obligations under the Geneva Conventions? The UN gets a lot of hate, but I think people don't understand what the UN is. The United Nations is not a world governing body. It's like an extracurricular activity that nations are encouraged to participate in. It's a forum for dialogue and discussion. And the reason why is no country would ever give up their sovereignty to the UN, and I don't even think countries should give up their sovereignty to the UN. So the only power the UN has is power that the states willingly give it. Every treaty, every resolution, countries are voluntarily participating, and ideally they should want to cooperate with. If they don't want to cooperate, you can't really force them to. Yes, there's the Security Council, and if nobody vetoes it, you can raise an army to go enforce a UN security resolution, but that hasn't happened in decades, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Concerning the Red Cross, there has been alarming reports of things the Red Cross has done inside of Russia. But with any international organization, they have different people and different branches doing different things. You would hope that within their hierarchy at the top, they would be ethical and they would want to hold Russia accountable for all their obvious war crimes and crimes against humanity. But at the end of the day, money is king, even for nonprofits. They need money to survive. And I think the Russians give the Red Cross a lot of money, which is why the Red Cross won't condemn or be critical of Russia's treatment of POWs. Next question is from Caleb. If Trump is elected, will Ukraine be able to hold on for another 4 years? The short answer is yes, if the Europeans do more. But it would be a hell of a lot easier for Ukraine if Biden was reelected and Trump was defeated. Because Trump does not support Ukraine. Trump doesn't support NATO. If Trump is reelected, he will leave NATO. He will destroy NATO. Trump threatens to cut US aid to Ukraine quickly if reelected. And Trump is a fascist. I'm saying this every week now because people in these Q&As keep asking me. But Trump is a serious threat to global democracy. Trump loves dictators. That's not my opinion. That's not my words. This is Trump's words. Trump says, I'll play the clip in a second, but Trump says he's in love with Kim Jong-un. So here's the clip from 2018 in which Trump declared his love for the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un.
And you know the interesting, when I did it and I was really being tough, and so was he, and we would go back and forth, and then we fell in love, okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love. But you know what? Now they'll say, Donald Trump said they fell in love. How?
Yes, I'm going to say that was a stupid thing to say. But this is just who Donald Trump is. He's a fascist. He's an idiot. He loves anyone in the world with money and power, because that's all he wants for himself. I don't know how to make this any more clear, my personal position on what I think about Donald Trump. So Trump loves Putin, Trump loves Kim Jong-un, Trump loves MBS, Trump loves President Xi. If you're a dictator, you have Trump's support. But going back to your question, can Ukraine continue for 4 more years without the help of the United States military? Yes, but that would require sacrifice from the Europeans. So the United States is the world's largest economy. It'd be nice if we helped. China's number 2, but Germany's number 3. Japan 4, the UK 6, France is 7, Italy is 9, Canada's 10, Australia's 13, Spain is 15, South Korea is 14. There's enough money and economic capacity in these other Western countries to help Ukraine defeat Russia. At the moment, we're just doing it with our spare capacity. What do we have in our inventories that's 30 or 40 years old? Can we just donate that now? But really, if any European power just wanted to treat this like a real war, and they mobilized their economy to just mass produce everything Ukraine needed, Ukraine provided the soldiers, France on their own, Germany on their own, Poland on their own, converted their entire economy to a wartime economy to defeat the Russians, it's doable. But that would require political will and sacrifice, and the people of these countries generally don't want reduced services and higher taxes when it's not their cities being destroyed. Next question, why aren't Western countries more aggressive towards jamming of GPS signals by Russia? It's clear that they're doing it. There could be a statement, and if they don't stop within 48 hours, all the jamming devices could be destroyed. So yes, out of Kaliningrad, the Russians have been experimenting with electronic warfare, trying to boost their signals and disrupt the GPS of all the Baltics, of Poland, of Germany, of Sweden and Finland. And this is messing with commercial airliners. Commercial airliners are at risk of what Russia is doing with GPS jamming signals out of Kaliningrad. I know what you want, but NATO is not going to bomb Kaliningrad. That would be a declaration of war. So Russia's doing this because they know they can do this, because you can't see it and feel it. People wouldn't support just bombing Kaliningrad. But if something does happen, if Russia makes a mistake or triggers an escalation from NATO, then yeah, wherever this jamming signal is coming, that's the first thing that's going to get bombed on night one. Next question, why hasn't America or the UK done anything to stop the delivery of weapons coming out of North Korea and Iran, and what's being built in eastern Russia, if it could have been acted on 2 years ago when Iran was shipping containers to Russia? So once again, you're saying, why doesn't NATO just blow up some ships on the territory of either Iran, Russia, or North Korea? And that would be a declaration of war, which is why we haven't done it. So shipments from Iran only go through the Caspian Sea. The United States Navy doesn't have any supercarrier groups in the Caspian Sea. This is basically an internal lake dominated by the Iranians and the Russians. So if they're going to ship back and forth between Tehran and, I don't know where these would be unloading. They're probably unloading here. We could do it with longer range missiles, but that's a declaration of war. Concerning North Korea, this is pretty fascinating, but I think the shipping containers from North Korea are loaded here in Chongjin, and then all they do is go to Vladivostok and they're loaded on trains. Somebody informed me that Korea and Russia have different rail gauges, so they can't just directly go by train. There is one small rail bridge between the two countries. So North Korea loads it on containers here, and then it just sails to Vladivostok and is loaded on a train that takes like 2 weeks to get to Ukraine, but it gets there. And once again, if you were to fire on these ships, that's a declaration of war, and they're entirely within their own naval space. This is North Korean and Russian territorial water. If there's an escalation, I guarantee these ships are going to be sunk, but we're not there yet. How many Patriots does Ukraine need to defend all their skies? It's great that they're receiving 3 new ones from the US, Germany, and Romania, but will this be enough? Hope you're doing okay, Jake. We just got word the other day that the Netherlands is also providing an additional 1, so we've got at least 7 Patriot launchers in or on their way to Ukraine as we speak. And that's the number that President Zelensky gave. Ukraine needs at least 7 Patriot air defense systems to do the bare minimum. When you ask policy experts, what does Ukraine truly need to protect every city, every square inch of land? And Ukraine needs about 20 for overlapping coverage to make sure that nothing gets through. But 7's a good start. 7 Patriot launchers on top of all the others. So this map is old. This was created by the Twitter channel Ukraine Battle Map. It's from December of 2022. But this is a hypothetical air coverage for all of Ukraine's systems. And they've gotten quite a few more systems in the last year and a half. So there's NASAMS, there's Hawk, there's IRIS-T, there's Patriots, and there's SAM-PTs. So this orange bubble is a hypothetical location for a Patriot battery system. Same with this orange. Ukraine is about to have 7 of these giant orange bubbles protecting their skies. The bad news is these really should have arrived last year. Would have saved a couple power plants. The good news is Ukraine will have these before this winter. Next question, I read that Hungary and 2 other countries still buy their gas from Russia and that the pipeline runs through Ukraine. Why doesn't Ukraine tell Hungary to stop supporting Russia, or their pipeline might accidentally get blown up? One, this is blackmail, and this is not something democracies generally should do. But when we talk about these pipelines, I think the ones going from Russia through Ukraine have all been destroyed or damaged. But you'll notice on this map, There's a pipeline that goes through Belarus and then south along the western border of Ukraine. It then goes into Hungary and Slovakia, into Austria, into the Czech Republic. And yes, Ukraine could turn this pipe off or destroy it, but that would really upset the people in those countries. When you think about the recent elections for the EU Parliament 2 weeks ago, Viktor Orban's party had its worst performance in 20 years. Didn't even get a clear majority. So for people who support Russia, public opinion even in Hungary is starting to weaken, and people are being critical of their own government for supporting Russia. But if Ukraine were to blow up the pipeline, and energy prices in Hungary were to triple or quadruple, Viktor Orban could then say, see, it's that evil Nazi government in Ukraine blowing up all the pipelines. That's why it's so expensive for you to heat your home this winter. So Ukraine's made the decision never to blow up these pipelines, because then the people of these Central European countries would then be mad at Ukraine, when they don't have to do this. Public opinion for support of Russia in those countries is already weakening on its own. Let's go to the next question. Jake, what are your thoughts about India and countries in the so-called Global South continued support for Russia? Very disappointing for us that support Ukraine. So I have a clip to play for you from the Minister of External Affairs of India. This is, I guess, Secretary Jaishankar. And I remember seeing this clip 2 years ago. This was from June of 2022. And he basically spells out India's position on Ukraine and Russia.
You know why I wanted to interrupt you in a way. I mean, I'm partly reacting to the previous observation. You know, somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. That if it is you, it's yours. If it is me, it's ours. I think that's something, and I see, reflections of that. Again, in terms of, there is a linkage today which is being made. A linkage between China and India and what's happening in Ukraine. So
I'll put the entire clip down below, but he basically says India doesn't care about Europe's problems because Europe doesn't really care about India's problems. People in Europe are guilty of being Eurocentric. As an American, I'm guilty of being Amerocentric. And for the Indians, they say, okay, the Europeans are having another war. In the past, they've dragged us into it. It didn't really benefit us. We're just going to stay out of it. So even though India is a democracy, and they really should care, they're choosing not to. They're saying, we're going to continue doing business with Russia exactly how we were doing it before Russia invaded Ukraine. Whatever the Europeans are telling us, we're just going to ignore them because we got our own problems. And nobody in Europe really cares about India's problems. So why should we care about Europe's problems? That's his opinion. I'm just rephrasing it, but it's not what I think. Next question, why won't America give F-16s to Ukraine? So to begin, the United States is limited in what they can give. Congress has to allocate money, and then the Department of Defense gives stuff to Ukraine. But it's finite. So the Pentagon is trying to figure out what can the United States give that the Europeans can't. If the Europeans can do it, they should do it. We'll do whatever we can on top of that. So the United States, additionally, the United States with the most recent aid package has been heavily focusing on armored vehicles. The United States recently sent an additional 100 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, 100 M113 armored personnel carriers, 100 Stryker. They've been sending MRAPs, Oshkosh vehicles. 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 So the United States is using their finite amount of help they can give for ATACMS, GIMLRs, armored vehicles, and the United States wants the Europeans to send F-16s. You can see from this map, Portugal has some, Poland, Belgium, the Netherlands, Denmark, Romania. If these countries send their F-16s now, they'll be given priority for purchasing and approved transfers for F-35s. All of these countries are eventually going to upgrade to F-35s anyways, so they might as well donate their F-16s now. That's why the United States, up to this point, has not allocated F-16s. But President Biden, last week, in this security agreement signed with President Zelensky, is promising F-16s in the future, just not this year. What this means is that President Biden needs to be reelected, and Congress has to vote and allocate the money. But yes, the United States will eventually send their own F-16s to Ukraine. Congress didn't vote on this. This was a executive signing. Has as much weight as the Budapest Memorandum, but politically we need things to go correctly in the United States, and if they do, the United States will be sending F-16s. How can we, as Western citizens, protect ourselves from disinformation from Russia and combat it? So modern Russian propaganda and disinformation is designed to confuse you and exhaust you, to get you to the point where you don't even think the truth can ever be known. So Russian propaganda is just incessant. It's tiring. If you've been paying attention to this war and everything the Russians have done the last 2.5 years, you have to feel exhausted. You have to. So my advice to you is, if you get tired, learn to rest, not to quit. The goal of Russian propaganda is to get you to quit, to stop paying attention, stop participating, stop supporting Ukraine. And everyone gets overwhelmed. Everyone feels on top of their day-to-day responsibilities. 2.5 years into this war, it's a lot. But you have to find ways to recharge. If you need to take a weekend, if you need to take a week, even if you need to take a month. Find a way to rest, recharge, and then get back in the fight. Stay engaged, stay informed, continue supporting Ukraine. This is how we're going to defeat Russia. And I also want to say, Donald Trump does the exact same thing. Every day on social media and television, Donald Trump just vomits nonsense to confuse and exhaust people. And this is his superpower. He has no shame. He'll say absolutely anything, and he just keeps going. Every day, vomiting nonsense to confuse and exhaust you as an American to the point where you stop paying attention. It's too painful for you. It's too uncomfortable to pay attention to the election, to think about volunteering, to think about supporting the opposition. So you have to find ways to rest and recharge, and then get back into the fights. This November here in the United States, it's going to be a battle. Donald Trump is a fascist who wants to destroy really the international rules-based order that Western democracy is based on. He wants to destroy NATO. He wants to destroy the courts, undermine the legislature. If he gets back in the White House, he'll never leave. He'll stay there till he dies. But he's not going to win. We're going to defeat him in November. Russia is also not going to win. Their form, their brand of disinformation and propaganda to confuse and exhaust people, we all feel it. But I know we can be stronger. I know we can overcome this. What have Western battle tanks, such as Abrams, Challengers, and Leopards, achieved so far? Or are the Bradleys actually more effective? Well, if you ask the Ukrainians, I'll link this clip down below, they love the Bradley infantry fighting vehicle. Because it's so difficult to go on the offensive, between drones, artillery, and mines. Donated Western battle tanks to Ukraine serve a purpose for defense, holding back the Russians, but as far as going on the offensive, it's just too difficult without air support. Ukraine is waiting for planes, they're waiting for aviation before they try to advance again. But as far as playing defense, the Ukrainians love the Bradleys. They say it's the top vehicle on the battlefield. They'll take a Bradley over a Challenger or an Abrams or a Leopard any day of the week. Next question is kind of detailed. My question is about Ukraine's offensive on Russian oil refineries. The refineries that have been attacked so far, is their production completely halted, 50%, or are they at full capacity again? Let's just answer number one right now. I don't know. I don't think Russia is broadcasting this information. Some refineries are completely halted, some are at partial capacity, but it's complicated. Number two, how many refineries does Russia have in total, and how many are in reasonable striking distance? How many different refineries have been hit so far? The price of Russian gas, has it gone up at all, or is it steady? So to begin, Russia has gone from a net exporter of refined oil products to a net importer. Within 6 months, Russia is now a net importer of refined oil products such as kerosene, gasoline, diesel. So Russia's importing from Kazakhstan and Belarus right now, causing the price to go up. I don't know what the prices are. I'm sure you could find this somewhere on the internet, but yes, if you're importing from your neighbor, that's going to cost you more money than just domestically producing it. As far as how many refineries does Russia have, here's a map I found, and I think Russia has about 40, 39 or 40. You can see here, this is 1,500 kilometers, 1,000, 500. It shows the various ranges, and then it shows which refineries within this radius has been struck as of February. So actually this map is old. More of these refineries have been struck in the last 4 months. Here's a report put out by S&P Global, and I think this is dated, yes, this is dated May 20th, so about a month ago. And as of a month ago, 16 Russian oil refineries had been hit. Some of them have been hit multiple times. This number is probably 18, 19, or 20 by now. But it's a battle, and it's going to take the rest of the year. But eventually, all of these oil refineries within 1,500 kilometers are going to be knocked offline. Russia is not going to be able to refine anything come wintertime. And here's the proof. Gazprom plunges to first annual loss in 20 years as trade with Europe hits, but also all of their refineries are being destroyed. So Russia's energy giants used to be a cash cow for the Russian government, but now it's a net loser. Every day that Russia's oil and energy industry continues to operate, they're operating at a loss. There is no profit for Putin or the government, and just by remaining in business, this is now costing the Russian economy money. Next question, the exchange rate of Russian rubles looks kind of stable in the last 6 months, except for the last week. What do you expect to happen in the next couple months? Long term, there's nothing good for the ruble. But if you do look at a chart, like if you Google USD to ruble, well then the ruble looks like it's getting stronger or it's staying exactly where it is. But this is the international exchange rate based on international brokers. Nobody in Russia is getting this price or paying this price. And the ruble isn't really an internationally traded currency anymore at all. Dollar and euro trade halted on Russia's big exchange due to new US sanctions. So if you can't trade Russian rubles for US dollars in Moscow anymore, who the heck is buying and selling rubles? Are there really people in, Sydney and Berlin just doing foreign currency exchanges in rubles. So nobody's trading the ruble anymore. It's entirely artificial. The volume of trade is so low that Russia's central bank can manipulate it. They can just place large orders to strengthen it or weaken it if they want. Russia's central bank is controlling this price by just buying their own currency if it ever gets too close to 100, or maybe their new target is 90. But for anybody who wants rubles or is inside Russia and wants dollars and euros, you got to go to a Russian bank. And Russian banks are ripping people off. They're not getting this international exchange rate of 1 USD to 87 rubles. They're paying 200 to buy a dollar, or they're having to sell 50 for that dollar. It's only going to get worse. Russia's screwed. Russia is losing about 1,000 men per day. How long can they sustain that? Based on how many men are there with the right age and how big of a part of the Russian population can be mobilized. Well, this is actually scary to look at, but here is the population pyramid for Russia. And just Russian men between the ages of 20 and 24. There's 3.6 million Russian men between the ages of 20 and 24. So if Russia just wanted to conscript and mobilize 3.6 million men between the ages of 20 and 24, and they're losing 1,000 a day, well, that's 3,600 days. That's 10 years. If Ukraine killed 1,000 Russian men a day for the next 10 years, they would only eliminate the 20 to 24-year-olds. This is absurd, though, because Russia can't do this. Russia needs police officers, factory workers, taxi drivers. They need people to support their economy and to pay taxes. They can't just kill all of these men. And if you are one of these men, between the ages of 15 and, we'll say, 59, well, as all your cousins and brothers and sons disappear, eventually, you would think they'd rise up and they'd put a stop to this war and they wouldn't tolerate 1,000 Russian men a day dying for nothing. Russia has a lot of people. Aside from air defense systems, how do you believe Ukraine will protect their F-16s? They will most likely be serviced in a NATO country, but do you believe Ukraine F-16s will take off and land from NATO airspace? I don't have any specific knowledge or information. I'm just speculating. But what I think Ukraine is going to do is there will be a place inside of Ukraine where planes will go to resupply, change pilots, get new ordnance, maybe just overnight. But if a plane is going to be worked on for extensive maintenance, or it's going to sit for whatever reason for a couple days or a week, I do think those F-16s are going to fly back to somewhere inside of NATO. Poland and the Baltics is too obvious, it's too close, so I think the F-16s will either be landing and being stored in Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, or maybe Sweden. It's my guess. The only country that really needs to give their permission is Poland. It's Polish airspace that these F-16s would be crossing to conduct their combat missions over Ukraine. It's incredibly complicated, which is why it's taking so long for these F-16s to arrive. But we're going to find out soon. I think we're all going to learn together the details as, I mean, you can't really keep this stuff secret when the entire continent is watching. All right, that's all for this Q&A. Thank you to everyone who participated, left a question. I really appreciate you guys. I enjoy these. I enjoy hearing from you guys. I really appreciate your support. We'll wrap up this Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone. Until the next time.